Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into TestTube Plus today. I'm Trace, and this is our series on music. Welcome to episode 1. If this is the first time you've joined us, we do a series of episodes. If not, thanks for coming back. Music is something that everybody loves talking about. We love listening to it, we love reading about it, we watch movies and television shows all about musicians and what they create, because music is a pretty universally awesome thing. But do you know where music came from, or what happens in our brains when we hear it? What makes music popular? We're going to talk about all of this and more over this series, but first, let's just get through the history of music. In 1995, a guy named Ivan Turk found an approximately 43,000-year-old, what he called a Duya Babe Neanderthal flute. It was in western Slovenia in a cave, and it was made of a juvenile bear's thigh bone with holes in it, and it was believed to be the earliest musical instrument ever discovered. This was thought to be kind of the beginning of musical instruments in humanity, but it wasn't. In 2015, the Royal Society Open Science published a piece saying that it was just Ice Age hyenas that had been scavenging on a bone. Now, Neanderthals, we do believe, made music, but they didn't do it with this thing. They probably were clapping or slapping on their bodies. Maybe they used perishable instruments, sticks, rocks. We can't actually know for sure. Nothing has been found to date. But experts believe that music has played a key role in human evolution. It led social bonding. It improved fitness. It provided babies and young humans with a playful way to learn and grow in the language of whatever group was singing. It aided the memorization of knowledge or history, passed down information from generation to generation through song. The timing of music could help organize workflows, which was more efficient. It even helped people stay awake around bonfires while they were watching for predators. Throughout modern history, music slowly, ploddingly evolved from this more tribal music, this out-in-the-wild music, and eventually became more organized. Musicians would influence each other. New ideas would spread from tribe to tribe and eventually through whole societies and through the world very slowly, because music originally had to be experienced live with other people as they were creating it. Eventually, monks the world over started using chants in prayer and meditation. This gave way to more popular music as instruments began to be invented that could create more and more sounds. We now call that classical music. Classical music influenced things eventually like jazz and blues, which eventually influenced and gave birth to rock and pop music, and we have that today. But this took thousands of years and spread mainly because there's something inside of us that makes us want to make and share music. We'll get into the endless positive effects of music later, but for now, in the modern day, we've completely changed what music means and how it works with our day-to-day existence, because we've changed how we get music in real time. We can hear more music, more varied music, and be exposed to music earlier and longer than ever in human history today. We can listen to music at home, we can listen to music on the go, but before the 20th century, according to Mark Coleman, author of Playback, From the Victrola to the MP3, 100 Years of Music, Machines, and Money, listening to music before all of these technological advances was a temporal, fleeting experience, a rare treat. Think about it. Music was a social activity. It was listened to at church or at concerts. People were trained in playing music because it made them somehow better in society. It somehow, elevated them in the class system. If you could play the piano, you could entertain your friends. You could entertain, potential suitors. If you were a woman, you could entertain potential brides if you were a man. If you could sing, you could become more popular in church, which would get you higher up the social ladder. All of these things change, of course, in 1877 when Thomas Edison invents portable music, sort of. The phonograph. It only had a few minutes of music on it, but now you didn't need someone to play music. You didn't need to learn to play in order to learn to enjoy music. Musicians rethought how they would write music. It couldn't be long performances anymore. It had to be stripped down into these basic recognizable melodies that could fit onto the phonograph tumbler. And that's why we're so familiar with these 3 to 4 minute songs. They needed to be these kind of bite-sized tracks. And later on, of course, over the next 100 years, we got records, we got cassette tapes. Eventually, after that, we got CDs, all sorts of other little inventions throughout. I actually owned some mini discs. I still have them somewhere. All these little things kind of helped make music more shareable. And it transcended the home listening experience. You didn't need to invite a musician over with all of your friends to a party in order to have music at the party. You just need to pop a record on your turntable or pop something on the phonograph. This created eventually a culture of collecting and swapping music. We created collecting records, we created mixtapes, and the stores that sold records and CDs, they were the pinnacle of music culture. We're going to skim over some of this stuff, but eventually we also have music on the radio, even before we had vinyl. The first live music played over the airwaves featured a solo violin by a guy named Reginald Fessenden. On Christmas Eve in 1906, Fessenden fired up his transmitting station at Brant Rock in Massachusetts, and he started a broadcast. Normally at this time, radio was used to say like, help, help, I'm in trouble, I need help from someone. But he was like, nah, I'm just gonna play the violin, see who listens. He started his broadcast at 9 p.m. with a brief speech, followed by an Edison phonograph recording that he played over the radio of Handel's Largo. Fessenden performed a violin solo of O Holy Night. He sang a few verses. He read passages from the Bible. This was the first time that the radio was used as an entertainment medium as opposed to like an emergency broadcasting medium. Live music performances very quickly became a staple of early radio. Many performance venues had their own radio transmitters. They broadcast live shows. And for example, Harlem's Cotton Club broadcast performances, and that was then picked up by CBS and spread all over the nation. So one live performance, where it used to be limited to the people who could fit in that room, could now be played for an unlimited number of people. That completely changes how people consume music. You didn't have to know a musician, and you could still listen. Eventually, radio would evolve to what we know today: pop music, rock music, all sorts of different things, talk radio. And of course, now we have satellite radio, meaning that it's not even regional. Imagine that, if the radio station that you listen to was only a few miles away. Now you can listen to the same radio station from coast to coast. Same station. Completely changes music. Eventually, we get to the internet, making that even bigger. Now you can listen to the same radio station anywhere on the planet, or no radio station at all. Create your own if you want. People don't know that trading MP3s back when we were kids, that was happening long before peer-to-peer file sharing services like Kazaa and Morpheus and LimeWire and things. You could join an IRC, which is like a text-based chat system, or AOL mass mailers and server chat rooms, which would allow you to download music from other people. Somebody in the chat room or in the IRC channel would have music on their computer, and they could be running a program locally that will respond to you sending them an IM. These were like short little programs that anybody could write. So using this chat system, you could send a request, they would email you a database of music, and then you could type in, say, /request the Eagles Hotel California. It would search their system, they would have that song, and it would be put in a queue, and the user would eventually send it to you, and you could download it. Of course, this was all happening at dial-up speed, so it took way longer to do all of these things than it did to just talk about them just now. And it was all automated. And you could put it in your Winamp and, skin it however you wanted. It was an amazing time to be alive. Let me tell you, it was the best. And this was the groundwork for things that eventually became a more, what computer programmers call GUI, a graphical user interface system like Napster or LimeWire. And the same ideas became accessible for everybody. You didn't have to learn how to join and talk in an IRC system in order to use these programs. There's not much to say about file sharing services that you probably don't already know. I mean, you probably are watching this on YouTube, you're listening to it on iTunes, we have both of those systems. So you have a fairly technical knowledge of the internet in comparison to people at this time. And of course, sharing all of these MP3s changed the entire music industry. People were suing each other, people were claiming that there was theft going on, the RIAA got involved. It was a serious issue. But Napster and the likes, they should be credited for the concept of the single as we know it today. There would be no iTunes Music Store, there would be no Spotify if there hadn't been IRC channels and Napster and all of these other systems that completely changed the industry. You didn't have to buy an entire album anymore. You didn't have to go to your local music store and compete with all the music snobs that were there to get the one track that you wanted on the one CD that you were kind of embarrassed to buy in the first place. I own all the Spice Girls albums. It happened. Not proud? Not proud. They're awesome. You buy all of these albums and maybe you just wanted Wannabe, but you got to listen to all these other songs too. And the model of the most popular online music providers use today is that I could have just bought one song in the privacy of my own phone. Sean Parker came up with Napster when he was 15. Mark Zuckerberg, who you know from Facebook, Jan Koum, who created WhatsApp, these were people who were using these systems, and some of them helped write these systems, and now they're inventing the future of these platforms too. We're taking this even further. As you're aware now, we're in the era of streaming music. You don't even have to buy it. Somebody else owns it, and you just stream it willy-nilly. You don't need a record label to distribute. You can just upload it. You're there. That's crazy, right? That completely is different from music only a couple hundred years ago when you had to know a musician, and way different than 500-600 years ago when you had to be a king to know music, or you had to be part of a tribe who valued that. It's a whole crazy thing. But today, we can listen to it whenever we want, which I think I'm going to go do right now. So you'll have to find out tomorrow on TestTube Plus what happens when your brain sucks in all of this musical knowledge. Why don't you tell us down in the comments where you got your music back in the 90s or in the early 2000s, and let us know your favorite song right now. Bet you a lot of them are going to be the same, but we'll get to pop music later too. This is episode 1 in our series on music, so make sure you come back so you get the rest of those episodes. We'll see you next time on TestTube Plus. But before you go, I want to comment on something that we saw in one of our comment sections from an earlier video we did about dinosaurs. Bill Campbell, you the man. A study came out from Yale in like 2012 that rejected the claims that we made about how the Triceratops and Torosaurus were the same thing. They believe that the Triceratops and Torosaurus are two different species. We said the Triceratops wasn't real. I mean, obviously it was real. It was a real dinosaur. The debate is whether or not it's a juvenile form of the Torosaurus or whether they're completely separate species. The Yale study casts some shade on the paleontologists who believe that they're the same species. This is incredible stuff because this is like the heart of science. This is like the inside baseball of science. This is how it works. Scientists publish different studies. One says one thing and one says another thing. It's super exciting. Make sure you click on the study that Bill Campbell posted. And thanks a lot for posting that for us, Bill. Again, thanks for watching TestTube Plus. I'm Trace, and we'll see you tomorrow.